Hello friends, welcome to Campus Magic. In this video, we will learn about Lambda function. A Lambda function is an anonymous function with no name. A Lambda function can be written by using this syntax where we provide the keyword lambda followed by the arguments or parameters and then we write the expression we want to calculate. A Lambda function can take any number of arguments but can have only one expression. So now let's see some examples. Here we have a function which takes a number as input and multiplies 3 to that number and returns the output. So here we have passed the parameter 2 and when we run this we get the output as 6. Now let's see how we can achieve the same output using a lambda function. Here we have provided the keyword lambda followed by the argument x and the expression which multiplies the argument by 3. Now let's run this and let's check the output. As you can see, we got the same output using a lambda function. Now in the second example, we have a function which takes 3 numbers as input and returns the multiplication of these 3 numbers. So when we pass the arguments 2, 5, 3, we get the result as 30. Now let's use lambda function to get the same results. Here we have provided the keyword lambda followed by the arguments x, y and z and the expression which multiplies the arguments. Now let's check the output. As you can see, we got the same output which is 30. Now in the third example, we have a lambda function which takes 3 arguments m and p and it finds the cubes of these 3 numbers individually and adds up the cubes to get the final result. Let's run this and check the output. As you can see, we got the output of 36. There's another way to write this lambda function where we don't take any variable to pass the parameters. We simply pass the parameters after writing the lambda function like this. Let's run this and check the output. Lambda functions are used with higher order functions in Python. A function which takes other functions as input or returns function as output is known as higher order function. In this example, we can see that we have a function to convert a string to lowercase. Similarly, we have another function to convert a string to uppercase. And then we have a third function called as result, which takes a function as input and returns the output depending on the function. So here when we call this result function, we pass another function in this function as a parameter. So first we pass this lower function which converts the string to lowercase, and we have passed the string as hello, which is uppercase. In the second scenario, we pass the upper function in the result function with a string which is in lowercase. So now let's check the output. As you can see, in the first scenario, the function converts the uppercase hello into lowercase, and in the second scenario, the function converts the lowercase hello to uppercase hello. The point to note here is we are passing a function inside another function. A result is a function which takes another function as input. So we call it as higher order function. Let's try to achieve the same result using lambda functions. Here we have defined a function result which takes a function as input and it takes another input as a string. And then we use the lambda function inside the result function and we pass the string. So now let's check the output. As you can see, we have achieved the same output using lambda function. But here we have used lambda function which is not defined earlier in the code and it is created at the time of calling this function inside the result function, and also there is no name assigned to this lambda function. Now let's move on to some built-in higher order functions which are map, filter and reduce. So a map function takes a function as a parameter and an iterable as the second parameter. So it applies the function to each element of the iterable, and it maps a sequence to a function. Now let's see an example. Here we have a function which multiplies the given input by 2, and we have another variable which has the list. List has the numbers 3, 7, 1, 9, 5. Now here we use the map function, and we provide this function inside the map function, and also we provide the iterable. So using the map function, we are mapping the sequence, which is the list, to a function which multiplies the number provided to it by 2. So in this example, we have a function multiply which takes a number as input and multiplies the number by 2 and returns the result. Here we have a list which has values 3, 7, 1, 9, 5. And then we have used the map function. Inside the map function, we have passed the function and we have passed the iterable, which is the list. So now the map function maps this list to the multiply function, and it multiplies all the elements of this list by 2, and then we convert this to a list. So when we see the output, we can see that we have numbers which we got when we multiplied the values in the list by 2. Now the same output can be achieved using a lambda function. So here we have defined a lambda function which has n as an argument, and it multiplies the argument by 2, and we have also passed an iterable which is a list. So now let's check the output. As you can see, we have got the same output using a lambda function. The second high order built-in function we will discuss is filter. A filter also takes a function as an argument, and also it takes an iterable as the second argument. A filter applies the function to each element of the iterable and filter the values. Here we have a function which finds the number greater than 5, and if the number is greater than 5, it returns true, and if the number is less than 5, it returns false. Now we also have a list with these values. Now let's use the filter to filter out those values which are greater than 5. Here we pass the function as the first argument, and we pass the list as the second argument. So if we run this code, we get the numbers 7, 9, 12 in the output which are greater than 5. We can achieve the same output using a lambda function. Here we have used a lambda function to get the output. So inside the filter we have used a lambda function where we have passed an argument n, and then the expression is n greater than 5. So it will filter out the list based on this condition. Let's check the output now. So as you can see, it has filtered out this list, and it has only returned those numbers from the list which are greater than 5. The third built-in high order function we will discuss is reduce. Reduce is a function which comes under functools module in Python. So reduce takes a function as the first argument and an iterable as the second argument. Reduce function applies the function to all the elements of the iterable to return a single value. So now let's check out how this works. First of all, we import the module called as functools. Then we define a function which takes two arguments and returns the multiplication of both of these arguments. The second variable is a list with these values. Now let's use the reduce function to find the result. Now the reduce function takes multiply function as the input, and it takes the list as second input, which is an iterable here. So now let's run this function and let's check the output. As you can see, the reduce function takes the elements from this list and multiplies each of these elements to get the final output. We can achieve the same result using a lambda function inside a reduce function. As you can see, we have used a lambda function inside the reduce function, where we have given two arguments m and n, and we have multiplied these two arguments, and the second argument is the list, and when we run this we get the same output. So that's it for this video. If you like the content, then please like the video and subscribe the channel.